The effective microorganisms in EM1 will increase the number of diversity of microbes in the soil, speeds up decomposition of organic matter and nutrient cycling. So we have to think about this so EM1, microbial inoculant, what will it do? Definitely is going to help your seed germination. So you could use this, follow the ratios that the manufacturer recommends, and you can do a seed soak.
And one more quick little fun note down here is that it has been well documented that there are 92, maybe more naturally occurring elements on Earth, wherein 82 of which have been found in plants.
There's a lot of, all their studies in the farmlands and across the lands, they're finding that the majority of our deficiencies are directly caused by us way over applying fertilizers. Add to medical plants, compost bins. You've got ponds, aquariums, beautiful for them. Raised beds, native soils, potted plants, vegetables, and like Mark said, go on their website. People are putting it in their septic tanks and stuff like that.
Have you ever wondered why bacteria is important to your system? Well, you're here with Mark Otwell and Dave Hansen on Perfect Gardens TV. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Remember to check us out on Instagram, Facebook. We also have our $2.99 membership, and if you need a little bit more one-on-one, we have our VIP, a link in the description below that you get connected directly with me. All right, let's go ahead and get in the video. Make sure to hit the join button on the bottom of every video. So Dave, tell me all about EM1 and Teraganix. So what is it all about? Why is this so beneficial to our garden?
Yeah, so we're going to be diving into Teraganix EM1, which EM is just basically means effective microorganism. And these are made from very specific methods via the fermentation process. So these are specific colonizations of bacteria that are going to help your garden hands down very, very effectively. So when we get into EM1, what is EM1? EM1 is an organic liquid probiotic for soils and plants. It's a combination of yeasts and acetomites and two kinds of bacteria, both photosynthetic and lab. That's the lactic acid bacteria. I'm sure you're familiarized with hearing people talking about making their own lab. This is the same type of bacteria, the Lactobacillus subtilis. This also improves the seed germination, root development, nutrient absorptions, and so on. The effective microorganisms in EM1 will increase the number of diversity of microbes in the soil, speeds up decomposition of organic matter and nutrient cycling. So we have to think about this, why is it supporting decomposition? Is because the food source for these microbes and the bacteria, and they're going to be breaking down this matter via fermented process. This releases nutrients into the plants, improves your soil structure. So when we say we're improving our soil structure, it seems like, well, how is it improving your soil structure? So you have to remember how this biology is working with your soil. So as it's breaking down the soils, the plants want this stuff. And they're like, hey, I'll send down some sugars and you guys come in, give me some food. And all that kind of becomes those root exudates, the sugars, the carbohydrates, the carbon, the amino acids, all kind of become that glue in the system. So you picture all these bacteria and these particles, sticks, twigs, and everything are now becoming one form, one entity. And EM1 is really good at doing this because of its efficiency in breaking down this decomposed matter.
One of the things I really actually do love about Teraganix too, as I got turned on to it by you, Dave, was specifically how they actually teach you. They just don't sell you a product. They actually sell you the components to make your own EM1. And that's actually one of the things I'm constantly looking for, and Perfect Gardens in general is what companies are out there doing their best to not just feed you a fish, but also teach you how to fish. And definitely this is all about EM1. If you go to their website or check out the other products that are on Perfect Gardens, you're just going to see that. You'll see that they have a composter. They walk you through the steps of how to make your own EM1, how to make your own compost, and they make it easy and efficient. So definitely I'm loving the EM1 and Teraganix brand altogether.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's a great way you can reactivate the microbial life and extend it and make your own. There's a small process of adding some molasses, some EM1 into a gallon jug and letting it ferment. A couple pH things you got to take in consideration to make sure your product is going to be adequate for your plants. But yeah, you buy one bottle and you can keep extending it. You're making gallons at a time, and yeah, it's a great entity to have. So EM1, microbial inoculant, what will it do? Definitely is going to help your seed germination. So you could use this, follow the ratios that the manufacturer recommends, and you can do a seed soak. So once again, the bacteria also potentially helping eliminate pathogens, especially old seeds For those, you open up the sock drawer, you find 5, 7-year-old seeds. Definitely going to want to do something like this to ensure proper germination rates, increase the root size and nitrogen uptake, speed up the nutrient cycling. And this one is really big for me, speeding up the nutrient cycle. And I think so often we have all the nutrients we need in our pots, right? We've amended them. We've used variations of 444 and other things, and it's just not available, and that's the whole thing. People are like, oh, you top dress, you have to wait 2 to 3 weeks. Well, yeah, if your biology is slow, but if your biology is amped up and you use a product like EM1, you can expect that the efficiency of your soil matrix is going to be up on top, and you're going to have those amendments potentially break down further. Now, big things like I always resort back to oyster shell, but yeah, those things are going to take time to degrade into the soil matrix and maybe be used over years, not just in that current grow. But vigorous microbial life is hands down going to create more nutrient cycling, improve plant vigor and health, influence uptake of sugars, restore natural resistance to disease, and then the list keeps going on. Less pests and less disease problems. So healthy plants are more disease and pest resistance. And you and I, Mark, we've been talking a lot about this, like healthy plants, bugs don't want healthy plants. And if we can get all these forms of what the plant is trying to uptake and convert to, if we can have this all completed in the 24 hours, then these plants are not going to be attracted to bugs and or powdery mildew. And especially stuff with like powdery mildew, you guys have to remember that powdery mildew lands on your leaf and it actually excretes an enzyme to break apart that leaf. If your plant health is up high and you have that nice waxy film, powdery mildew cannot penetrate your leaves, and bugs, it's not a food source for bugs anymore. So if your plants are high in nitrates and ammoniums and stuff, this is when you're going to have your spider mites and infestation. So keeping a good balance in the soil and the constant uptake and having the plant be able to convert all that every single day is a big, big benefit. Safe and better for the environment. Probiotic gardening is 100% natural, no harsh chemicals or toxins and synthetic fertilizers. It really is, guys, just microbes, and it's created by the fermented process. So we always talk about aerobic and anaerobic, but right in the middle are these yeasts and other things like lactic bacillus and stuff like that can handle somewhat aerobic and anaerobic conditions. So they're right there in between, kind of bridging that gap between what we're always talking about. And it's always one-sided, like, oh, you want aerobic. No, you have anaerobic. But in nature, they're all kind of working together, right? They're keeping checks and balances together. And this is right there. So all our products we've been looking at, you have Recharge, you have Great White, you have all these other inoculants, but when you break down the bacteria, they might favor nitrogen fixating organisms, and they might favor more anaerobic versus aerobic. But what about these middle guys? And this is a great product to help bridge that gap. If you're using existing products, it works hand in hand great as well with these other products. You might have to use less though. And that's right, Mark. That's our goal. Mm-hmm. Use less fertilizer. How can we use less fertilizer? Well, increase the nutrient cycling that you can provide for your plants.
If you guys have not watched the full podcast with James White, I highly recommend you go check that out. And if you didn't watch, it's just too long because I think it's a 2.5 hour long podcast. We've actually broken it up just because there's so much quality content in that podcast. And one of the things that was just a huge aha moment for me was that bacteria is everywhere on this plant. You want healthy seeds, put the bacteria on the seeds. You want healthy roots with the rhizophage cycle. That's what we talked about with James White. It's all about the interaction with bacteria, roots, traveling up the xylem, and it's all about transfer nutrients to the phloem. One of the things and also realizing too that bacteria just doesn't stop in the root system. It doesn't just stop on the leaves. It's actually going in and out of your trichomes, and the trichomes are on pretty much all plants. Just really understanding that bacteria has a huge relationship with the trace minerals that is in your ecosystem, because just like how we're showing this slide right here, and I'll just read just right to the side of it, it says right here, enzymes are responsible for breaking apart and re-welding protein bonds. Every enzyme needs an enzyme cofactor. Bacteria make enzyme cofactors. All enzyme cofactors are dependent on the amount of trace minerals that are in your environment. These enzymes can perform their tasks hundreds of times before being degraded in the plant. So if that didn't make sense, go back and re-listen to that one or two more times. So just to explain number one, right? Enzymes, if you think about the DNA or amino acids or peptides or proteins, every single time they break apart, you need an enzyme for that, right? But enzymes cannot be created. They need two specific things. They need bacteria and they need minerals. And when you have the minerals and bacteria together, they actually produce the enzyme cofactor that makes that actually produces the enzyme and
activates it. Yeah,
that activates it. And it's just so important to understand that bacteria, like we said, you amend your soil with all the minerals that you need, and the next step is to make it bioavailable. And really, you can't make it bioavailable without that bacteria. Fungi is slightly different. Fungi actually does do a couple things similar to bacteria, but fungi really is responsible for going out and retrieving these minerals for your root system, for the bacteria. So just understanding each of these things in your soil system, they have their own jobs. And one more quick little fun note down here is that it has been well documented that there are 92, maybe more naturally occurring elements on Earth, wherein 82 of which have been found in plants. So just think about that for a second. 82 of these naturally occurring elements have been found in plants, meaning to find them in a plant, that means bacteria and fungi took them up into the plant. That also means that the bacterias with these minerals produce coenzymes for all those 82 minerals. And that's a huge point there, because we're normally only giving them NPK, magnesium, calcium, maybe some iron, some real sulfur, some really like 10, 12, 13 elements, right? So it's very limiting on the amount of enzymes that bacteria can actually produce, because we're only giving around 13 or 14 minerals. Although when you're able to provide a full set of array of minerals, that's why we're always talking about drops of balance, then you're really able to produce all the enzymes needed, so that once these enzymes are produced, they go on to do their task hundreds of times before they're degraded in the plant. And so if you think about that, every time you have them doing their jobs before they're degraded, it's like an employee, right? That employee is working for you for the entire life cycle of its life. However many times that enzyme is doing its task, that employee is doing that work for you. And remember that bacteria and that mineral, they go on to produce that enzyme. So once you just have it in there one time, they go on to produce something that does work for you hundreds of times. So I just like to emphasize on that. And that's why we're pushing EM1, because EM1, they talk about only having one or a couple bacteria on the label.
The label actually has one. It's the Lactobacillus subtilis. Yeah, one on the label.
They have one on the label, but EM1 actually has way more bacteria than that's on the label. And that's again why we got so fascinated with this product, because when you turn most products behind like a subculture M or subculture B or recharge or a great white, you're going to see a very limited amount of bacteria, and you might only see 5 or 10 bacteria at most. And the bacteria are actually very similar to the trace minerals. As you get smaller and smaller, our science has not created the scientific technology to actually measure and identify the smaller trace minerals or the other types of bacteria. So as we go on later, 5 years, 10 years down the road, and our science catches up with our biology, we're going to be able to identify more of what's actually going on in the soil. We're going to be able to see that in some level, it's actually slightly irresponsible to only give 1 or 2 bacteria. And it's better to actually give a full array of bacteria if we're going to really see the full potential of plants.
Yeah, and just to help kind of clarify too, through our discussions with Teraganix, they basically stated like the people that certify your products and all that, they don't have the equipment to test. And they actually stated that they had to do, they paid money to use electron microscopes and stuff to identify the bacteria and stuff, so they can fine tune, their EM product. But in terms of what the regulatory people see, it's Lactobacillus subtilis, and a very specific one. And if anyone else is, if you're having a hard time kind of picturing what's going on in the soil matrix, another good way to think of it too is bacteria. Think of bacteria as the miners. They're going in and they're mining, breaking down rock products that you don't think could be broken down further. And then think of fungi as the cleanup crew, the decomposers. So you have the miners, and then you have the cleanup crew and decomposers. And it resorts back down to is carbon cycling, guys. You want to make sure that your soils are rich in carbon, meaning organic material. And if you have a lot of organic material, you have a lot of organic material that the bacteria can feed on, which means that you have a lot of organic material that could be released back into the plant. And that plant's going to further those cycles and give some back. They give root exudates and sugars back, and it's amplifying and creating a homeostasis within your pots. And if you can find that blend and you have good bacteria, you're going to be amazed on the consistency of the life of your health, and going from toxicity to deficiency to toxicity. And this back and forth really plays havoc on the natural biological systems and what the plant is trying to do, both hormonally and nutritionally. So when we create that stabilization, both in the soil matrix and what is in that soil, then you get very, very healthy plants. I know it seems that simple, but products like this really do help extract what you can't see. Because no matter what, we're trying to play chemistry. Even when I mix dry amendments, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, you're still kind of guessing and playing chemistry, unless you're doing tests and SAP tests and stuff like that, which most of us are not going to do on this low, hobbyist level. But the feedback of what the plants are doing, and if you're getting longer amounts of time before feeding, you're going to see that right away. And if you're using something like liquid nutrients, I guarantee you're going to probably be close to 40 to 50% less nutrients. And Mark and I were even talking like, dude, there's no reason why what did we come up with, like 500 or 500 parts per million if it's done right?
If it's done right, the best grow this entire last year, the best grow out of hundreds of clients that I do VIP one-on-one with, the best grow, we never got above 600 parts per million throughout the entire grow. His essential oils was ranging about 30 to 33% on the plant, and the terpene count was just under 3. So 3%. And that's absolutely incredible for a first-time grower, right? And he just he trusted. He didn't, go buy a bottle of Hulk or something like that at the very end of the grow and dump it in there. Right. He trusted the process. He trusted what I was encouraging him to do. He did it repetitively, religiously. And at the end of the grow, I think out of 3 or 4 greenhouses, I think he ended up bringing down close to 200 pounds. And like I said, the lowest strain, I think, was 26% essential oils on the plant. And the highest one on there was close to 33%, including the terpene counts, which we actually do have the testing and the COAs, which is a certificate of analysis, verifying and proving what I'm saying. So definitely am a huge proponent in living soil.
Yeah. I mean, and if anybody's following like rejuvenative practices and stuff, like there's a lot of, all their studies in the farmlands and across the lands, they're finding that the majority of our deficiencies are directly caused by us way over applying fertilizers. And it's complex. It's bombarding the system, and then it's that whole domino effect. We're not going to go too deep into it, but it's like, this is too much, so this doesn't become available. So you have the primary, the secondary, the third, and depending on how far you want to take, you could have 4 or 5 different things, and your iron and zinc and everything else is locked out. And it's because of the amounts that we're adding, and you think about a lot of situations, they're adding, they're measuring, then they're flushing to adjust it, to bring it back down. Think how much wasted water, nutrients, everything. It's just the domino effect. Keep it in the soil, keep it suspended in that matrix, have trust in your soil, and that these microbes, fungi are going to break it apart, and you're going to see it hands down. For application and rates, the minimal dilution rate is 1 ounce per 1 gallon. You can go all the way up to 6 ounces per gallon. You can use spray bottles, so foiler sprays, highly recommend, watering cans, hose applications. And I put this because, if you want to go use it in your yard or in your bushes. And I'm not going to share it in this presentation, but I do have photos and I do have things that I've been doing around my household. And I can tell you, hands down, I've been here for 4 years now. My hostas, my pansies, my lilies definitely have never been this big and luscious. And some of the blades, like on my lily, like if they're normally like an inch wide, they're like freaking 2 inches. They're huge. The seedlings that I planted for hostas that normally take a couple of years to establish, they're almost as big as their mothers right now. And it's really fun to see just how fast opening of my native soils could be. So we'll definitely have more content for that. Add to medical plants, compost bins. You've got ponds, aquariums, beautiful for them. Raised beds, native soils, potted plants, vegetables, and like Mark said, go on their website. People are putting it in their septic tanks and stuff like that, because you have to remember if you have ponds or septic tanks, they're going to eat that sludge. They're going to be breaking down that stuff. And so what used to stink is not going to stink anymore. So there's even applications for around your house, like spraying it on sheets, or, if you have dog odor or pets or what have you. And this is working on the biological side, right? We're not just masking it with the scent of flowers and blasting aerosol in the air. This is actually on a microbial level, eliminating the odors. And if you ever get into like Bokashi, which is using the EM1, the reason the breakdown doesn't smell, because that fermentating process is basically making pickled food. So it doesn't stink. If it went rancid and aerobic, then yeah, it's going to be moldy and stinky and what have you. So yeah.
Application and rates. So if you're using this product by itself, like it says, 1 ounce all the way up to a gallon, you're probably going to want to use a little bit more if you're using it by itself and you don't have anything else. If you're using it in conjunction with Drops of Balance for a soil system, so for roots, for Drops of Balance, you're going to want 1 ml per gallon if you're using tap water. Remember, if using RO water, you're going to want to use 0.5 mLs of Drops of Balance. If you're using it as a foliar, you'll use it at 4 mLs if you're using tap water and 2 mLs if you're using RO water. But if you're using EM1 in conjunction with Drops of Balance, then I would definitely recommend to just use the lower amount of the one ounce per gallon, just because, again, you're combining 2 products that make 1 + 1 normally equals 2. But when you combine products like EM1 and Drops Balance together, especially if you find a fungus product with it as well, it's like 1 + 1 = 11, right?
Yeah, they work hand in hand.
They work hand in hand, and they really enhance each other.
Well, and it goes back to what you're saying too, on this slide, you have trace minerals, trace elements, Drops of Balance, and then you have the bacteria. And on the smallest levels, this is creating the biggest ripples, across the board in the plant, in the soil. And it really just comes down to the elements that we can't see. It's like, well, how do I know the bacteria are thriving and living and stuff? Like, well, hopefully the feedback of your plant, the luscious, waxy leaves, the ink, you're not getting major swings from toxicities to deficiencies. That's how you're going to see it. And you're going to also, depending on how much organic matter, when you're done with the run, if you had a lot of leaves, old sticks and stems from your previous grow, I guarantee you're not going to find them because they're broken down and made back into soil. And that's all going to happen within one run, depending on your up potting and stuff like that. But that nitrogen cycle is going to be, or the nutrient cycle is going to be increased tenfold. Yeah. So guys, we're going to wrap it up. That Teraganix EM1 microbial inoculant will benefit everyone's garden. I really do truly believe this, opening up the true potential of your soil and creating a healthy environment for your plants, establishing and reconnecting symbiotic relationships between all organisms in your soil. Increasing the microbial activity and efficiency means more nutrients are available for your plants. This amazing relationship means you use less fertilizer. And I'm super excited because my last autoflower run, I didn't have Teraganix. I used fish shit and a few other teas that I brew, but I went from seed to harvest without top dressing. I'm a strong believer. I'll find a formula for people out there that from seed to harvest, you won't need to keep top dressing those autos. I've seen people 2 or 3 times with those autos. And it's just like from seed to harvest, you're looking at 80, probably no more than 100 days. That's a shit ton of food. You add the microbes, it's going to break it down. It's going to make it available, and you probably won't have to top dress. It's a bold statement, I know, but you got to get a bottle to see it. Just spray it in your bushes, spray it in your grass, and to see the results.
And guys, if you're on perfectgardens.com, you're going to want to go over to nutrients and IPM, click down to Teraganix, and that's where all the products will be. If you are on Drops of Balance, you're going to go over to plants, come down to EM1 Teraganix. And for 10% off, you're going to, on the Drops of Balance side, just plug in PG10 for 10% off on all the any product that's on Drops of Balance. And if you're on Perfect Gardens, just type in Terra 10 and you'll get 10% off on Perfect Gardens. Thanks so much. And Dave, I really appreciate you introducing this product to me because I've fallen in love with it and I am seeing the results in my own personal garden. So thank you again.
Yeah, and guys, make sure you head over to Facebook too. Like and follow us over there. We're going to be putting a lot of gardening tips, special promotional stuff over there as well. So continue to be part of the community and the group. We're helping each other out, and together we're going to combat all the bullshit in the world.
All right. Have a great day. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe.
This one is also what's called a Fit for 25B. And what that means is, as I was saying before, those products, there's a list of Fit for 25B that it's really what your ingredients are. So it's ingredients that are considered organic ingredients that are all natural or something along those lines that